Okay, perfect. We're officially on. We're officially on. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram Live. Appreciate you guys for the patience. So I wanted to start off by saying today's topic of a discussion really hit me and really hit home because when I started thinking about how can I implement more things to the school in the sense where it can make us only better, not things to micromanage the team, but things that was genuinely going to help us in the long run. And then this idea popped into my head. And then when I talked about it, I recognized so many other people have this quality or hold these qualities to themselves as well as to their businesses. And that's truly what makes them successful. So, as you all know, this last week we were spending the week in Yankee Stadium with Patrick Bet-David. What I love about Patrick is the way he carries himself, his mannerisms, the way he speaks, the way he processes things. I am truly, truly a fan of everything about him. And the way he operates himself or carries himself, the way he operates his company. And then it ties in with Yankees, the New York Yankees. And we know he's a minority owner of the New York Yankees. And that was recently, I think. It was like the last 2-3 years, was it? Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, recently, like the last 2 years, he became a minority owner of the New York Yankees. And what I truly appreciate about the Yankees in general, because myself personally, I grew up in New York City. So I'm not a Yankees fan, but I'm a Mets fan. But you would always see them compete with each other. And it would always have back-to-back Yankees and Mets. And there was something always different about the Yankees. The Yankees always had a different appeal. It had a different approach. Even when they went against other teams, formidable teams, the Red Sox, New York, Subway Series, other challengers, the Yankees stood out as, like Cameron said, the American team. Yankee Doodle. It's the same thing from, the Revolutionary period in America. But I found out when I was touring the facilities that the Yankees have an appearance policy. The appearance policy was started in 1976 when the manager, Billy Martin, introduced the neatness counts policy, which specified no beards, no beads, no mutton chops, no long hair, no long stirrups. And I love that. All players and coaches and male executives are forbidden to display any facial hair other than mustaches, except for religious reasons, and scalp hair may not be grown below the collar. And what I thought that was pretty hilarious. One is because everybody and their mother knows baseball is ran by Dominicans. But yet they still held their own appearance policy. They held their own standard to what it means to be a New York Yankee. Even when the majority of the people were against them, they still maintained their own standards. Then you go to the experience with Patrick Bet-David. Then you get to meeting Patrick and how he operates his company. He has certain standards that he runs for his company. A lot of the standards are, and a lot of them, the standards that he maintains is because of the frequency at which he operates, the speed at which he operates, as well as just the ins and outs, having to have a sales mindset, processing problems. You have to be sharp. So what I appreciate about Patrick Bet-David was he held such a high standard for himself that his team follows suit. Because if you want to be an individual who's going to be in his circle, be in his around environment, or be in his company, you have to be operating at the same frequency as him. So many people, sharp is my, thanks, Eduardo. But for so many people, Standards is not recognized nowadays. Standards are almost pushed to the side. People don't appreciate, people don't even set standards for themselves. And that's when they just let things happen to them. Opportunities come and go, lost relationships, lost um, losing themselves to their vices because of these standards that they don't hold to themselves. Now, with the Yankees illustration, with Pat's scenario, with his standards, how he holds himself to it, holds his standards to himself, and then people around him want to hold his standards. What are some standards that you all have for yourself or for your companies or for your families? Because we know standards are something that can be transferred. Those principles that we're learning about standards apply to everybody. So I want to hear from you guys. What are some standards that you have when it comes to work, family, or personal? I know a few of you guys were commenting, so I'm going to read a few right now. Like, for example, we have Tennessee electrician. Honesty is my number one. If I mess up, I want to admit it to the customer or my GC. If I don't know something, I'll tell them I don't know, but I will go find it out. That's a nice standard for yourself and in vice versa for your business. How about anybody else? Any standards that you may have for yourself, for your family, or for your business? I'm going to go with my standards. Some of my standard, it's your own time. If you're on time, you're late. Wow, I like that. Is that personal or is that at work, at your supply guys? That's a good one. That's a very good one. What's interesting is standards, how everybody has their own standards, yet standards also move or change with the times that we're living in. There was one influencer, I'm not going to name names. There was an influencer. He's not around anymore. He's from the next generation. And he was saying, how do you get hired when you don't have work experience? He goes, when you're going for an interview, he goes, for example, if your interview is at 11 o'clock, you better show up at 11 o'clock. No ands, ifs, or buts. Now, in theory, if you have an appointment, awesome. 11 o'clock, you want to be there for 11 o'clock. But we came from the generation where if you are on time, you're late. I still came from the time where you have to show up 10 to 15 minutes before something, you know? So that's so funny how we may have that standard, but then there's individuals who have a completely different standard. So Diamond, I appreciate you saying if you are on time, you are late. That's a perfect example. So one example is if you show up on time, you are late. That's his standard when he's running business. Tennessee electrician Cameron was talking about honesty. If he doesn't know the answer or doesn't have the answer or doesn't know how to do something, he's going to let the homeowner know as well as the GC. We have Fix All Electric. If you tell these guys to be on job site at 7:45 to start at 8, you don't have to pay from 7:45. That's not the question. Fix it. The question is, what is your standard? If you're running your business, what's the standard you're upholding? 10, 15 minutes before is perfect. I agree. 10, 15 minutes. You're going to show up 10, 15 minutes before a movie starts. If a movie starts at 11, you ain't showing up at 11. I'll put money on it. And if you do, you lost your seats. You know what I mean? Unless you got those new ones where you guys can sit. You're assigned a seat before you even go in. But no, I love that stuff. I love that stuff. What's some other examples of standards that you guys may have? Remember, personal, family, or business. Give me some standards that you all have. I'm going to start with mine. When I started working at this capacity, when it came to not only my electrical business, but now for the school at Energize Us, I started and dialed back on how much I want to spend on my free time. My free time versus being able to be productive. I understand where I'm working at and where I'm trying to go goal-wise. I need to sacrifice a lot of things that I typically like to enjoy. I recognize the only way I'm going to get here is if I cut out a lot of the noise or the fat in between. So for me personally, I cut out a lot of personal things that I personally like to do. So my standard is this is not the time for me to go enjoy myself. I understand delayed gratification is going to be up here. So that's something I have to hold myself to. Then when it comes to business stuff, I don't know if many of you guys notice, whenever I work, whenever I'm on camera, whenever I am doing or holding transactions or working with someone, talking to someone, even going out to a simple dinner, there's a few of you guys here that I've personally met. Tennessee, I've met in person. How many of you have we personally hung out? How many of you guys? I know we have Tennessee. I know Ova, family always comes first. That's a good standard, brother. But basically what I'm trying to get to is whenever I'm conducting work or whenever I'm out in public, I do not drink. I do not drink. That is a standard that I hold for myself. Not because I don't want to have fun. No. I know my fun's going to be up here. I personally do not drink because I don't want to have that brain fog. I don't want to get sloppy. I don't want to now say something that I regret. I don't want to have to use effort to think a normal sentence. That's just personally for me. Now, when I conduct business, when I'm with a group of guys that are part of the school, that we're all working together, I don't tell anybody, hey, you shouldn't have to drink, in the sense where I don't need to tell them that. They understand the severity of what we're working. They understand what we're trying to build. They also understand on, hey, to be running efficiently, we need to be level-headed. We need to be cool. We got to be collected. Alcohol has the potential of messing that up for you. So far as a standard for myself, I'm not going to drink. And what was so funny is, like, as I was getting to meet the people on the team, as I started growing with them, it's one of those things I don't even talk about. It's the thing, we'll just go out to dinner and it always comes to the part, hey, could we get you a drink? And it's like, I never order a drink. So then they're over here thinking, if Will's not going to drink, why am I going to drink? So then it's this dance. But then they see the level we're operating at. And then what always happens is the people who end up drinking, those are the people we end up having issues with. Every freaking time. Every time. The people who end up drinking always gives us a headache. At some way, shape, or form, alcohol puts tension on the night. And that's just one of those moments where it refines for me, where it's like, hey, there's a time and place for everything. We're going to make sure we just keep focusing, keeping the standards up, and just keep moving. And once again, that doesn't have to do with anybody else. That's just how I want to operate my business. If you want to operate your business in another way, shape, or form, more power to you. More power to you. I just know we're going to have that edge. If you need alcohol to be loose, then I don't know what to tell you. But what I love about the example of having standards is, it seemed like when we were younger and we were growing up, if you had standards, you weren't the cool guy, right? If you didn't go out partying, if you didn't have drinks, if you didn't have that story where you came back from the weekend and like, oh, I got messed up, you weren't cool. So having no standards, having no morals, you were deemed cool. And I feel like the tides are changing in that aspect, not only with age, but I feel just like culture-wise. So many people are now turning to having standards, having a routine, having morals, having jumping around from this isn't cool, to the point where you're 30 years old and you're jumping around like this with girl to girl. It doesn't even make sense anymore. But when you start looking at characters and people, and you start seeing like, hey, if this is how they're handling their personal life, how are they going to treat you if you are a customer? How are they going to approach you if you are somebody you want to do business with? Can you be taken seriously? That's something that we have to keep in mind. We don't want something from our personal life to transfer over to our business life. And that's why today's mastermind, I wanted to hear from you guys when we come to the topic of standards, because it's very important to keep and maintain those things. We understand moments come up. We understand things slip up. But for the most part, if we keep those standards, we replicate those standards, we lead by example, you're only helping other individuals who are looking up to you. And I know there's a lot of you guys out here who are doing just that. You guys have a high standard. Keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. I appreciate all of you guys. But for the ones who are just jumping in, we are talking about standards, maintaining standards in personal life, business life, also family life. If you are just jumping in, what are some standards that you hold for yourself, your family, and or business? I want to hear from you guys. While you guys start typing up your messages, I'm just going to repeat the example that we had from the beginning of the live. So if you are just jumping on, last weekend I spent the week in New York City. We spent it with Patrick Bet-David, our advisor. And what I loved about Patrick is when we went to Yankee Stadium, we started talking about the history, the culture of the New York Yankees. And that brought us down to, in 1976, New York Yankees, Billy Martin introduced the neatness counts policy. So if you were a New York Yankee from 1976, they had no facial hair, no beards, unless it's a mustache, religious reasons, et cetera, et cetera. No hair below the neck, on the chest. And what was so funny was a league that is primarily a league, and I'm not talking about just the Yankees, a league, the whole MLB, a league that's primarily dominated by Latin Dominicans. And they're saying no facial hair, no chest hair, no jewelry, no beads, no nothing. That is hilarious to me because Yankees just said, basically, I don't care who the majority is. I'm going to uphold my own standards. And if you want to be a Yankee, you're going to have to follow suit. To a group of minorities or the majority that are primarily who have facial hair, who have body hair, who have this, who have jewelry, who have bling. That's insane. But Yankees, once again, said, no, we know our worth, or they established their own worth. They established their own policies and dictated the flow of how they're going to carry themselves. That's what led me to find like a new level of respect just for the Yankees, because that was like a behind the door conversation policy. Like, I didn't think like you can tell someone not to wear a beard. You know, that has to be something against HR. But I just love how they weren't afraid of taking a stance like that. Then that leads to Patrick Bet-David, the way he carries himself, his mannerisms, the way he speaks, the way the tactfulness, the way he processes things. And then on top of that, he has a team who follows suit with him, travels with him, works with him, crazy schedules. Like if you just saw right now, we were in New York till Monday together. He flew back on Monday, worked on Monday, did a podcast, and now he's back in New York. So the way these guys are operating, all gears are turning. There's no time for sloppiness. And that led us to how he carries himself, where he made a post today where he goes, I don't drink. I don't drink because of this. I don't drink because of that. And that now led to us, how we want to imitate examples like that, how we want to hold those standards like that, so we can now give the best product to the people, the end consumer. So I just wanted to talk about that. How does standards affect your life? Personal life, family life, business life. If you guys are just jumping on, I'm going to read some of the comments now down below. Boo Yankees. Exactly. That's why he thought when I said we're in New England, he's like, oh, you got some Red Sox fans. Gold Coast, I appreciate you. Gold Coast Electrical. Keep the work vans fresh. Don't dress like a slob. Brother, that's two very, very hard ones to enforce, especially in the skilled trades. So many guys, how many times can you guys, or have you guys gone into your vans and you see that bag of McDonald's, or you guys on the West Coast with Chick-fil-A or In-N-Out? Do you see it just in the middle console? So many guys grab the food, eat it, throw it down, or they have like the ripped up Carhartt shirts, or they'll just wear some baggy old pants going to work. We have to be presentable. I know Red Wolf does a good example of that with uniforms. I never agreed with the fresh shaven thing. Just be presentable and respectful. I agree. I agree. You can't hold someone accountable for their facial hair, and it's hard to set a rule on someone else's facial hair. So I understand what you mean. You can't uh, force someone to be clean shaven. But on the other side of the coin, if someone has a beard, I expect somebody to keep a nice maintained beard at the same time. True or not? Like clean it up, have it trimmed up. You know what I mean? You don't want to be looking like a slob. At the same time, you want to be presentable, like you said. The best convention experience with the best people in the business. Oh man, what are you talking about? El Grenas. El Grenas. What was the best convention experience? Heritage Electric. How you doing? Big Lou joined. My brother Lou. Bro, you still haven't texted me, Lou. Mine's grows every 2 days. El Grenas. Clean work area. Wash newer vans. Collared shirt talks professionally to customers. Yep, I agree. Especially when it comes to the way your guys talk. We know for the most part, skill trades, it can get tough out there, rough on the job site. But we want to make sure we held the standards because, especially nowadays, cameras, ring cameras, security cameras, we don't know who's watching, who's listening, and the last thing you want is you guys on camera blasted and like look at how they're talking. Let's see, Joe Cluis, do the cleanest and best work and the presentation as it would be done at your house. That's a good one, Joe. That's a very good one because so many people have the idea. Or you ever heard people say in the trades, it looks good from my house. Basically, it's so far away I couldn't even see it. But that's exactly the type of culture that we don't want to uphold. So many of you guys are opening up business, taking the risk, throwing everything into it. The last thing you need is an accident. The last thing you need is to do it. Get a oops. Last thing you need is to get a bad review because one of your guys didn't care enough about the job. That's something that scares a lot of us. So I appreciate that, Joe. Appreciate that. I appreciate you, Lou. Don't rush. Don't rush. Just send me a text, brother. I'm here for you. Don't allow profane music in people's houses. Heritage, that's a good one. That's a good one. Especially when people are walking around with AirPods now. They're just blasting music. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a sensitive one, too, because a lot of people, they don't want to be uncomfortable in their own home. So I appreciate that. Odinson Electric, on the job site, we're going to redo the work before we let any subpar go, seen or unseen. I appreciate you holding those standards to your guys. And eventually, hopefully, it only happens once or twice where they get the message. Because now what's so beautiful about standards, and that's the next point we're going to go into, but we need to uphold the standards. Remember, having standards is one thing. Upholding them is a whole nother ballgame. Because the second you break on that, what are the guys going to think about you? Comment down below. If you have standards or you're going to start, hey guys, this is what we're going to do. We're going to start doing this, and that. And then you start slacking on it or they start slacking on it. And it's just like a kid. How many of us have kids 1, 2, 3 years old? How many of you guys got kids or had kids? What do? You ever see them pick something up and what do you say? Don't. And they're like, don't. Boom. They do it anyway. Why are they doing that? I want to know your comments down below if you got kids. I know Jesus, what's your boy doing when you do that? I want to hear what you guys think. Odinson, but I appreciate that. Yep. Even if the homeowner doesn't see it or you guys see it, it breaks your policy. You go back. I love that. Always try to go into the day with a positive attitude. Leave family drama at the doors. Silence the text. Wow. I appreciate that. That's a good one. Diamond Electrical Supply says, always try to go into the day with a positive attitude. Lead family drama at the door. Silence the text. And that's going to work. The same thing can apply going back home, right? You want to leave the drama at work and not bring it to the family. I like that. Tail light warranty. Custom Electric. For me, maintaining my van organized and stocked on daily. That is awesome because that's probably one of the hardest things to do because a lot of people don't want to buy things in surplus. So many people don't want to, waste money on organizing a van when it's not going to help them. But we know it's just like the first thing, the hardest thing, the easiest and hardest thing to do first thing in the morning is make your bed. Start with the easy win. So many people tend to forget that. But I appreciate that. Custom Electric X. Daily basis. Keep me efficient. Clean can also. Many complaints from customers about my rig often. Really? People look into your van, or they're just talking about the outside all dirty? Thank you, Custom. 45. Jump off the dang couch, dude. Oh, yeah. Work neat. Treat people homes with respect. I agree. I have no tolerance for tools or material put on anything other than drop cloth. Gold Coast Electric. That is a very good one. You want to treat the house like if it was your own, because the last thing you need is someone to be upset. Andrew the Sparky says fire. Ova, what it's like to have the van organized. Come on, Ova. You got to step it up. You got to step it up for these guys. Personally, kiss the wife goodbye every morning. She loves little things like that. Oh, yeah? That led us, Diamond. That's interesting you say that, because that's another video we had where we talked about it's crazy how our wives have the ability to make or break our day. There's days, Diamond, not to like get off topic, but there's days where I'll go in, wake up early, getting my coffee, baby girl's walking around. I go to my wife, I give her a kiss. She gives me a kiss back, right? You do that little look at her and she's like, yeah, go to work. So you go to work, bro. I can work all night. I can work till 2 o'clock in the freaking morning. I'm on cloud 9. Vice versa. You ever have those days where you go give wifey a kiss and you go in, right? And then she does this. Woo, that is cold. That is cold-blooded. Bro, your wife has the power to make or break. And now that's with you all day. You're at the job site. You can't even think straight. You're over here thinking like, oh, what did I do to piss her off? She's over here upset. She did it. Bro, it's so funny. But yeah, you hit it on the hell. You hit it on the head. And just as I said that, my wife just jumped on. You see, I'm telling you, this girl got a sixth sense. The second I talk about her, she knows. But yes, Will, I had a customer, a pilot, hire me because he saw how organized my van was inside, even though I was more expensive than another bid. You see, Custom, setting those standards. Diamond. So Diamond, so when you go give your wife a kiss and she pulls back and now you're walking on thin ice all day, that's what I got to deal with too. So you're not alone. We should start like a men's therapy, a blue collar therapy. That's right there. A blue collar therapy. I just get other trades, get booners looking into mine with all my pack out and veto. The pullback is killer. Yeah, dude. When you do the kiss and then they go, whoa, I'm like, whoa. First of all, it's too early in the morning. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. You're pulling back. What's going on? Like, what the heck? And then you start thinking, like, I didn't do anything today. What is she upset about? And it's something that happened last night. Oh, well, this happened yesterday. And I'm like, yo, for guys, I feel like when you go to sleep and you wake up, it should be like a reset button. Like, poop, it's a new day. Sins are 0. Faults are at 0. Love is at an all-time high. But, you got to love them. You got to love them. But it's just so funny when that happens. It's so funny when that happens. But, yeah. No, I appreciate you guys. How about any more of you guys? Any more standards that you want to apply in business, family, and or personal life? Now we're going to go to the next segment where it's all fine and dandy if you have standards, your order of operation, how you're tackling things. Perfect. If you have those standards, beautiful. Keep them up. But the next layer is enforcing or maintaining those standards. Why is that so important? Well, that's so important because you need to enforce those standards. What if you break them? What if your team breaks them? How are you going to react? Well, we all know, once again, everyone's imperfect. Everyone's going to stumble. Everyone's going to mess up. And there's times where you're going to be flexible. But when it comes to standards and principles that you want to uphold, that's going to be determine the company culture. Those are things that you got to act on them. And of course, there's moments where you can't act in the exact moment, but afterwards you can discuss it, tactfulness. You know what I mean? Because those are opportunities where you can save an employee the shame. You can also save them from the headache, and you can also win them over with one, showing the standard is important to you. Two, showing them how respectful you can be in that approach to that person. And at the same time, you want to just keep that bond with that individual. So, like, for example, if you say, hey guys, shift starts at 8, you know how we like to do, show up 7:45, we can have our coffee and we can go over some things. And every day they show up 8, 8, 8:01, 8:02. Because if they show up to work at 8 o'clock, it just takes one thing to happen. Their shoelace is untied, they get a flat tire, they need gas in the morning, the red light. Now they're late. Now it's 8:05, 8:06, 8:07. And you can think it's just 2-3 minutes, it's just 5 minutes, it's just one time. But those are the opportunities where you just want to reinforce it to them. Hey, hey guys, this is what we're doing. This is what we're about. This is what we're trying to go to. And where we want to head to, we can't have these little things down here holding us back. So those are some things you always want to combat. You always want to talk to each other, have that example. And then always end the conversation. Because remember, if you're trying to push your standards, if you're trying to push your culture, if you're trying to push your work ethic to someone else, another grown individual who can just say, the hell with you, I don't want to do that. Always end every conversation with, now what can I do to help you? What tools do you need from me to help you? That is so very important, because once again, it's another individual that you're pushing your standards for, and you're just expecting them to follow suit. You want to make sure you give them all the opportunities, tools that they need to be successful in reaching those goals. Take away any hurdles as much as possible. At the end of the day, they have to do it. But you want to make sure that you give an opportunity to them to have the opportunity to tell you, hey, nope, I can do it on my own. One, that's reassuring to them that you can do it, but also is saying, hey, everything you told me is within reason. It's within reach. I appreciate that. That's a good way of starting off communication. You always want to make sure you, especially if you're holding yourselves and holding standards to everybody, you want to make sure that you give them everything that they need or the resources that they need. I appreciate you. Heritage said 100%. Electrician time. Steve, late to work on a continuous basis is not good and gives a bad example to others in the company. Correct. Those are something that you really have to discuss, handle, because then just like you want to hold your standards and bring everybody up. Because remember, if you don't pay your guys on time, they're going to be like, oh, you're supposed to pay us. If you don't do this for your guys, give them proper PPE. Oh, you're supposed to do this for us. They always want to hold you to a higher standard, right? They always want to hold you to a higher standard. But vice versa, people don't want to comprehend where, hey, if you're setting a standard and someone's now going beneath that standard, you have to have that conversation. You have to have that communication. Because if you don't have that conversation with them, now they're going to be dragging other people down with them. So just like today, we had a post, I think it was Andrea's post, where she was talking about how like 4% of the world doesn't have goals, or only 4% of the world makes goals. We started talking about upward spirals and downward spirals. So many people go through the spirals of, it's Friday night, they decide to go drinking. Now they're tired Saturday morning, so they sleep in. Then they eat some sugar because they need the pick-me-up. Then they don't go to the gym because they ate some sugar. Now it's just a downward spiral of headaches. The same applies for upward spirals and momentum. So the same applies to your business. If you have that bad egg, you talk to them, it can become a downward spiral and start affecting everybody else. But that goes back to why enforcing standards, enforcing your methods, your character development, your principles in your workspace, your work ethic, just as important as it is to create and hold standards for yourself, it's twice as important to now start enforcing that when there's things that come in the way of those. Like 45, Justin, checks and balances, correct. Heritage, also add all that time up at the end of the month, correct. It's never just the 1 or 2 minutes here on Monday. It's Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and next thing you know, the guy got a free lunch, on the clock, because it's always 1 or 2 minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, 1 or 2 minutes. But I appreciate you guys. No, you guys hit it on the head today when it came to talking about our standards in personal life, family life, and in work life business. Once again, this all started last week when we were in New York City with Patrick Bet-David. What I appreciate about spending the day with him, as he is the minority owner of the New York Yankees, we did a private owner's tour of Yankee Stadium. And what was so interesting to me, in 1976, the Yankees started the neatness counts policy. And what in this policy said, hey, we're not going to have facial hair. We're not going to have body hair exposed. We're not going to wear beads. We're not going to wear jewelry. All in a league that was primarily, remember, the MLB. We're talking about a league that is primarily dominated by the Latin culture. The Dominicans love baseball. The Caribbean lives on baseball. So even though the league was primarily dominated by this one group, this one, demographic of Caribbean players, they held their standard. They said, this is our stance. If you don't like it, that's fine. You're just not going to be a Yankee. And that's something I thought and was the takeaway that I gleaned the most from this event. The fact that these individuals can hold themselves, have a standard, and yet they're still maintained their craftsmanship, their workmanship, and all that stuff. But I want to open up the floor now to you guys. Those were my 40 minutes of basically talking about standards, how we can replicate them in family, business, as well as personal life. We're going to invite some people in. We have a request from JP Remodeling. So we're going to invite our brother over here. So we're going to see what he has in mind. We're going to get to know him a little more and see what he's cooking up. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment down below. Also, don't hold back. No jewelry at work. Surprised how many guys I see wearing rings, chains. Exactly. Well, that's also Gold Coast. That's just a safety concern, also. You want to make sure that no one's wearing the jewelry just so they don't get hurt at work as well. But if you guys need anything, questions, concerns, JP didn't jump on. But if you do, let me know, brother. I rock the watch. That's about it. Oh, yeah? Nice. If you guys have any questions, concerns, comment down below or feel free to jump in. All right, guys? But if not, we can call it an early night, have an early Tuesday. I don't mind. I can grab some Z's. But if you guys have any questions, concerns, feel free to jump in. All right? No hesitation. Hi, Myco. Hope you're doing well, brother. I wear my wedding ring. It's non-conductive. Oh, do you have that little insulated one? The little, the rubber ones? We have another request came in. We have electrician time. We have Steve. So I appreciate that. Good to see you again, brother.
How are you?
Good. Can't complain. Today we were just talking about the standards for the New York Yankees and how I love the story and how it applies to everyday life.
Standards are real critical. When I was an electrical contractor, I noticed there was a correlation between the successful workers and the ones that were not successful. The successful ones came to work early. They would ask me, hey, boss, what do we need to do today? What can we do to make this job better? And it was a joy working with a couple of the guys. A couple of the guys would come late, and they would come with an attitude. The guys, I'm not saying this as a rule, but most of the guys that were smokers, let me tell you this. Oh, no, don't worry, boss. We're not going to be smoking. It's not going to impact, our work. Whenever I would leave the job, they would immediately stop work and go outside and smoke for 10, 15 minutes, right? And then I would come back and they would, rush back inside. Those guys, most of the time, I'm not saying it as a rule, they were not as productive as the guys that didn't smoke. And usually they're the guys that came to work late and left early. So guess which guys got the bonuses and the raises all the time?
The non-smokers.
Well, the ones that came to work early, right?
Yeah.
Usually it was the non-smokers. And the ones that would stay late. Hey, Steve, boss, what can we do? I know we got 3 jobs this week. We got to do. And those are the guys that I loved because I knew that they had my back. The guys that says, oh, it's 4 o'clock. I got to go. Well, wait a minute. We got a half an hour left to finish up the job. We have a new job to start tomorrow. Oh, no, I have an appointment. What do you mean you have an appointment? I have to go to the gym. Oh, really? Okay. That means I have to work till midnight so that you guys can have a job for tomorrow. So that's the standard.
I love that.
So that's just a little more of advice, for electrical contractors. And if you're going to be working for an electrical contractor yourself, be the best electrician out there.
I love that. That's
also,
a good one.
The guy that you had last night, what was the night before? The one who's doing like 110 houses?
Yeah. Peter Galligan. Let me see if I can type his name so he can get pinged. P. Galligan.
I did have a thought, and it's something that actually relates to Chad. So Chad had the opportunity to go to Copper Weld, I believe it's called, where they do the copper-clad aluminum conductors.
Yep.
And I know this guy is trying to price the job as cheap as possible, right, to get the job and make money.
Yep.
And I haven't really seen a lot of it out there, the copper-clad aluminum. But I'm just wondering if that's going to be such a differential in price that could really have an impact on his profitability on these jobs, number one. And number two, if the electrical inspectors are going to be okay with using copper-clad aluminum on the job sites. I don't know about that.
Yeah. I just tagged him down below, pinged him, so let's see if he jumps on,
Right, because I went to an IAEI code seminar a couple of months ago, and the instructor there was talking about copper-clad aluminum. He's actually part of a UL. He's actually a UL engineer. And there's some devices that you have to be careful of when you're attaching the copper-clad aluminum. And I'm not sure if it's 100% satisfied yet, by UL and everybody, but, again, that's questionable at this point. And I don't know. Have you seen out in the field copper-clad aluminum?
Down south.
Down south?
Yeah, it has to. I know it has to. There was my father got a unit down there, and they were installing copper-clad, and they said they could only use it if it got approved on the plans and it's listed from the inspectors down there when they threw in the plan. Utah, they have to be listed. It's also up to code still. Yep. You see?
Okay. And I don't know what the cost differential is between copper and copper-clad aluminum.
Chad, I'm bringing you on. There you go, brother.
Hey guys, I just wanted to hop on real quick.
I had to mention your name, Chad, on this.
So let me get outside real quick.
Because the other night, Will had this contractor, I think, bidding on over 110 cookie cutter houses, and he had to price it really tight, that he's going to get the bid. And I was just wondering what the cost differential would be from copper to copper-clad aluminum, and if that would have a major impact on his pricing.
Oh yeah, that's the price point is dramatically lower for copper-clad aluminum. Also, when you buy copper-clad aluminum from Copper Weld, they sell it directly to you. There's no markup. They don't send it. They won't even sell it to a supply house at all. You can't get it from them. You have to buy it straight from Copper Weld. And there's been some misconceptions right now. There's a lot of litigation going on some of the subjects that you've been talking about. They actually have an on-site UL person, and they have a whole building where they do more testing by code and by standard. copper clad aluminum has to be listed all the way through. That's the cladding of the conductor. That's the insulation. That's the sheathing. Any other type of product only has to be, only has to be listed for the insulation. The tests that they put on that product are extremely, way more extraneous than you would find on any copper, as well as the fact that the minute they have a fire, there's going to be an issue. The thing that people don't understand is you have two different types of aluminum conductors. You have the 1350 series aluminum that was put in the 70s. That expands and contracts way too much, and that's what caused fires. Plus, you have the dissimilar metals.
With the connection.
Yeah, you have the dissimilar metals that, like, if you go put aluminum in a house, you'd have people tying in with copper, right? So aluminum that we have in feeders, a lot of people pull SCR cables that have aluminum, and that aluminum is an AA8000 series. And you, by code, according to 310.3b, that has to be 10% copper, and the rest aluminum, that has to be AA8000 series aluminum. That conductor, what happens with aluminum, when you scrape aluminum, just the outside skin of aluminum, it tends to oxide, or it will oxide. So when they do the copper clad aluminum connection, the aluminum goes in through a chamber that sprays the outside of the conductor off, and then they clad the copper to it. When you have no-lox or antioxidant, how you're supposed to actually put that on is you're supposed to put that antioxidant on the aluminum and scrape it with a wire brush, and continually do that, so that when you connect your aluminum connection, that it doesn't scrape through at all. So because of the codes in 110.14d for torque settings, if you set the torque correctly, you'll never scrape through that aluminum, and you won't ever oxide. So I have an issue with one thing that I've been seeing Mike Holt posting a lot lately. He's been saying, you're a dinosaur if you don't use copper, or if you use aluminum or antioxidant. Yeah. And I say to Mike, you can't say that, because I've been in Mississippi with La Valley Electric, and you go down to the Delta in Mississippi, which is very poverty driven, and it's a very poor part of our country. People are not upsizing any of their services, right? They're not changing any rewire in any house. And when I go work with those guys, part of my consulting gig for them is I teach for 3 days, and I go in the field for 2 days and mentor some of the younger foremen. And when I go on the jobs, I would say 90% of their terminations that they're making are old 70s style 1350 aluminum on the new breakers. So if you get on Instagram and say, hey, you're a dinosaur if you use this, well, they got a 20-year-old kid in a truck following you. They're going to listen to every word you hang on, and you shouldn't say that, right? So I think as educators, sometimes we speak in absolutes. I catch myself all the time saying that. You'll never need this. You'll never see this. Our industry is so big, is so vast. We shouldn't talk like that. And also around the country, Will can attest to this. And then Steve, that around the country, different cultures, different environments, different parts, even at the parts store that you can buy, really are something that we have to consider. When it comes to copper clad aluminum, it will take over the industry soon. And I'm not just saying that. China is buying up all of our copper by 1935. By 2035, we're going to have a shortage on copper, and that's because China's buying up our copper for electric vehicles, and with that, Southwire is eventually going to buy out Copperwell. Southwire is a $16 billion company. They're going to buy out Copperwell, but for right now, you guys are willing to spend boatloads of money on copper Romex, and inspectors are saying it won't get put in my house, so they don't. But when I went to the Copper Clad convention, and Steve, I'll get you to that next year. Both of you guys, if you want to go, I'll get you to that Copper Clad convention. I think the next growth convention, I already talked to Peter Gracer. He's going to donate as much wire as you guys need for all of that stuff. Hold on one second. My wife's favorite guys. If you guys say hi to my wife's favorite guy. Hi.
Hey.
The Amazon guy. Sorry, I'm live on Instagram. It's all good. All electricians know who you are now.
So, Chad, you think we can, we can get that contractor hooked up to give him a quote, for those 110 houses? Maybe they can do that all in copper clad.
Do you know him? It's Peter Galligan. Peter Galligan.
Yeah, I know the name. He's here on Instagram. Is he from New Jersey or something?
Jersey, South Jersey. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen his page. I'm sure I follow him.
No.
But and one thing I don't know, Chad, when you're hooking up the copper clad, let's say to a light switch or a receptacle, most of the light switch is going to say copper only, CU only.
Right.
Very few say CUAL. Right. And I haven't seen anyone that says copper clad aluminum. Any guidance on that?
Yeah. So right now, that's their biggest problem. Number one is AHJs, being those guys that say I wouldn't have it in my house. Now I'll tell you,
AHJ.
What happens, and it just happened, and I'm not going to tell you the state because you guys might figure out who was involved, and it's not Utah. The state tried to ban copper-clad aluminum, and they had already had a boatload of people that put it into the state. Will's correct. It's get put in a lot in the South and Texas and a couple other states. But with that, the big issue right now is that we have in 110.14 in the National Electrical Code book, and 110.14, just the heading or just the first part before you break into the subsections, it says that all terminations or all wire connections need to be identified. Now that's not listed, right? That doesn't mean it needs to be listed. It needs to be
identified means identified, right?
And so it has to say it on the package. Well, who's the big dog in our industry? Who has the most power, the most pull? $16 billion Southwire. So what does Southwire do? They got a hold of a company by the name of Ideal and said, do not put copper-clad aluminum on your bags or we'll just make our own and you're going to go out of business. So they stopped. Well, some things have happened and now they're going to put CCA on the terminals. So it's the same thing with devices. Good attorneys and people that aren't going to give up are pushing things, and it'll eventually be a product that Southwire is going to buy out Copper Weld. And Copper Weld is a company that for decades has been the company that did your ground rod, right? And then they just bought out Peter Gracer. His family did. His family built the copper-clad aluminum conductors and have been selling it in Canada and South America and different places like that for a very long time. So it's a viable product.
So it is possible, but I think the local AHJ would have to buy into it so that, this guy is not going to have a problem.
Yeah, and that's probably when he submits all those permits, when he submits all those permits for the 114 houses, that's a good time to say, hey, this is what we're thinking about. 114 are going to be coming your way, and this is what we're going to be doing. Instead of wiring it out, buying all this stuff in bulk, and then at the first inspection, he's like, what the heck is this?
Yeah, so how I got lined up with copper-clad aluminum was it's actually kind of a freak thing. It's social media. As you guys know, everything that happens to all of us is social media. But it was actually LinkedIn. I'm friends with Will on LinkedIn. It's everything with social media has its different, and sorry, my goats freak out whenever they see humans. But
I just want to interrupt. I saw a comment here from Red Wolf Electric. He says, I feel like I need to hire security after hearing Chad talk. All right?
I don't know what that means.
I don't know either, but it sounds kind of serious.
Maybe because I'm mentioning litigation and things that I shouldn't be talking about. But what are they going to do? Sue me?
Listen, as an electrical inspector myself, I'm not everybody's friend. I got people wanting to kick me off a job site because I'm catching this.
Look at this wild Utah stuff right here.
Wow.
That kid was hanging out in his car and he saw you guys and jumped in. We live in Redneckville. And they were racing coming down the road. So, no, with Southwire, or with all this stuff, it always comes down to money, guys. Again, how I found those guys, on LinkedIn, my buddy Tim McClochie, Will knows him. He's out of Connecticut. And he represents the IEAI in the code making process and panel making 6. Very nice guy, close friend of mine, very supportive of me. He's always given me such love on Facebook that when he got onto LinkedIn last year and he said, I'm going to a copper clad convention, in my head I go, that sounds like the most boring convention on the planet, but I got to show this guy love. So I was like, dude, you get to go do all the fun things, right? Just totally joking with the guy. And I get a DM from some recruiter from Copper Weld. And I live right by these greenhouses. This is the #1 flower distributor in the West Coast for Better Homes and Garden and Walmart. So the guy that owns this lives 2 houses down, and he's worth like $14 million just on flowers. So it's just crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I get a recruiter saying that they're looking for a master electrician to go and try to talk to different engineers and architects to try to get copper clad aluminum put into the specs. Because when you get a set of plans, it says copper or aluminum. And so with that, that's kind of how that came out. I actually flew out to Tennessee, had no interest. I wanted to scare my boss to see if I could get a raise. Didn't happen. But went down there. They were a little unorganized. And I'm a firm believer when you're interviewing somebody, they're interviewing you, right? You should be. You're both interviewing. Sure. And one of my mentors, he's the CEO of, he used to be with Southwire, but now he's with that transfer switch in the meter company, the Global Power Products. And he told me, when you go there, you're interviewing them. So when they're organized or in this, well, they've gotten so big so fast that they don't have everything in place. And I didn't understand that. So I was like, I don't want to work for you. But they've hired a guy. He travels around the country. He's a master electrician. And his goal is to talk to engineers and get the copper clad aluminum put on spec. So there's a lot of misunderstanding about it. And right now I'll be in code making panel 1 with Armando Cepeda. I think you met
New
him
Mexico.
on one of the lives. New Mexico Sparky. And then they have another guy going to get put on code making panel 2. And they already have 2 guys on code making panel 6 and 3. So they got a big presence and they're not going to get pushed around. They've already kind of proven that. I don't know how long it will take for the product to take off, but it will, because the government's got its hands on taxing copper now. And so it used to be that Southwire could go straight to Rio Tinto and buy its copper, and now the government's got its hands on it. And once that happens, the prices are never going to go down. So as of right now, they're wanting you guys to spend that much money on copper. Until then, once that happens, that the copper goes low, they'll just buy out Copper Weld. When you're $16 billion, you buy out whoever you want, right?
Yeah. Well,
Right,
so yeah, I think
does it make any sense, Chad, to hook up that contractor with Copper Weld and see if they can figure something out together?
I don't know that end of their business. I deal with more of the president and the CEOs of the company than I do who does the sales. But I'm sure one call to Peter Gracer and we can have that figured out, right? They just sent me $10,000 worth of wire to my school, just off of tell us whatever you need. And I'm like, I need a little of this and a little of that. And they sent a lot of everything that I asked for. So.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, that might be a good thing. This way it'd be good for Copper Weld to get into 114 house development and make a presence there. And that might be a good footstep for them.
I think that number one, what they told me, the number one customer for Copper Weld isn't electrical contractors, it's developers that are buying up subdivisions and telling electricians you have to put this in.
Yep. I like
so when we talk about litigation, you got billionaires saying, no, put that in my houses. It's not contractors that have 200 guys. It's billionaires that are building houses and selling them. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So
cool.
I love that.
So anybody can buy Copper Weld. Anybody can buy that product, but it's their biggest thing right now is exactly what Steve said, is authority having jurisdiction. So they're not trying to push it to the contractor. And I've told them, we can post this on Instagram. We can send a bunch of stuff. You got to let me have some of my hand on your marketing. We can put it out there. He goes, Chad, it's fine. But our biggest problem isn't going to be selling it to the electrician. The electricians are going to eat it up. Sure. It's the authority having jurisdiction. The minute they think the inspector won't allow it, they're not going to buy it. I mean, think of how many people are putting bond bushings and transformers and it's not required. because they're just afraid the inspectors are going to call them. So
Yep.
inspectors do dictate market as well, right?
Yep.
So just to repeat, if a light switch or any kind of device says CU only, copper only, do you think it's permitted, Chad, to put copper-clad aluminum on that termination?
By code, no, it's not. But as of in the last year, the manufacturer, NEMA, has put out that they have to put that on there. So if you got an old switch in your truck, it probably doesn't say
It doesn't have a
that
listing.
on it. Or if Home Depot's got a box that's been sitting back there for a year and they finally crack it open for you to buy, it probably doesn't say it on there. But everything now, by NEMA standards, has to have that. Same with UL listing. So the guy that you heard from UL, he's correct in the fact that if you grab one of those now technically they didn't do anything to that switch, right? There's nothing they did anything different other
Nothing
than
at all.
they just stamped that it's identified for that. So
Right. I mean, when you're making that connection from the copper clad, you're connecting copper because it's the skin effect that carries the ampacity.
So-
And the core basically doesn't really carry that much. It's the skin where the electrons are really flowing.
Yes. That's what I thought too, because that's what it says in the Del Mar's book, and that's everything I've read.
Right.
However, through their testing, one of the reasons you have to size copper clad aluminum to aluminum, right? A number 10 on 20 amps, a number 12
Right.
on 14 amps, is it has to do with frequency. So we run at 60 hertz in the US, and they find that if you have more skin effect, the faster the frequency is. The more frequency you have, then you have more skin effect. But because we're at 60 hertz, it does bleed into the aluminum quite a bit. But the thing is we have that we have that AA8000 series wrapped around, and it's about more of the connection. You get a copper to copper connection with that aluminum.
It's copper to copper at that point.
So yeah, it's a good deal. But I'm gonna get back in. I got in late.
Go ahead.
My wife rolled her eyes when I jumped on. But you guys were talking my language. I
knew. I wanted to get your attention real quick when I said, "Oh, copper clad. I gotta grab Chad now."
Yeah. No, I was gonna call Will today, but today was registration, and you kept calling multiple times, Steve.
Yeah,
today was registration at our school, and every single class, even the daytime classes, filled up in 10 minutes. We had lines of people outside of all of our campuses, and usually we have a waiting list of 200, and we have a waiting list now of 600 with the students that are in our classes. So I don't know what happened. I thought it would go down because a lot of contractors aren't asking. Like when I call them and say, "Are you looking for people?" They're not saying. They're saying they don't want any first years. They want guys with experience. So I thought maybe our waiting list would go down, but it's up there, and all apprenticeship went up. Plumbing was never had a waiting list. They got a small one of 50 people, and then HVAC, they filled up their first class. So that was good for them to get one full class.
That's awesome.
We have potential. To probably have 2,000 people. If you look at how many people roll over the IEC of Utah, it's all online. Wow. And then if you can't get in my school, they jump into that class. So today was crazy because every contractor in Utah or in Utah County was calling me saying, "Hey, bro, you taught my company. Well, you can't hook me up." And I'm like, I can't. The class is filled up too quick.
So that's so cool, though.
It actually happened so fast that it crashed our computers. It took people's money, crashed the computers, and didn't put them in the classes. And then when they're upbeat, other people got in. It took their money and put them in the class. So today's been and I taught a CEU class, so it's just been a crazy
nonstop,
day.
back to back.
But yeah, I'll call you guys with the other stuff. Will, I wanted to talk to you. I appreciate your text this morning. You don't know. You must have been reading my mind. I needed to hear it. So thank you for that.
It was a weird moment. I was just saying, I was like, I haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you for that. And Steve, I'm not avoiding you. I just,
I know where you are. I got to go to Utah to find you now.
Listen for the sounds of the ghost.
All right.
All right.
Give me a call on Thursday, Chad. Tomorrow I'm going to be traveling.
Good night, everybody.
Okay. See ya.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Appreciate you. That was Chad German, Steve Cavaliers. of Electrician Time. Today's highlights: maintaining standards in your company, developing standards, holding those standards. And then at the same time, we were talking about how we can all work together, have standards just like the NEC code has standards for our safety as electrical contractors. Well, hope all is well. Stay safe, guys. Have a good night. Bye.